To us, one of the most exciting aspects of the annual PwC Cybersecurity and Privacy Days is the pitching competition. We've chosen the top 5 innovative solutions that will go on to compete for the Cybersecurity and Privacy Solution of the Year award. The jury, a group of experts and business professionals in the cybersecurity field, will award the candidate that demonstrates excellence at all levels, from strategy to execution on the 28th of October. In this podcast series, Silicon Luxembourg speaks with each finalist about what makes their solution different, how COVID-19 has or hasn't changed cybersecurity, its relevance and the technology around it, and why they decided to pitch. Hello and welcome to this podcast. Today we are going to talk about cybersecurity, of course, and the world's first privacy-preserving biometric authentication and personal identity management platform. My name is Teresa and I'm hosting this episode in partnership with Silicon Luxembourg, the media house of startup news and digital stories in Luxembourg. In this episode, I'm really honored to welcome COO and co-founder of Keyless, Fabian Eberle, who is competing for the Cybersecurity and Privacy Solution of the Year award. Fabian, could you please explain in simple terms what your solution is about?
Hi, Teresa, and thanks very much for having us today. With great pleasure. Keyless came about because our vision is for a digital world where people don't have to rely on passwords or the possession of a particular device to authenticate or identify themselves, but where they can rely on their own biometrics instead and become their password, or the key as we say it, making for a more convenient, secure, and above all, private world where the user is in control, a world that we call keyless. And let me ask you and our listeners a question to make it a little bit more real. When was the last time you forgot your password, or you struggled when completing a multi-factor authentication process? Probably that hasn't been too long ago. And no wonder, you're using on average about 100 products or services that you're logging into. And with everything going digital, think of your utility company, or the way you consume music or read the news, that's rather becoming more than not. But even people who do know or should know what's right struggle in doing so. By that, I mean more than 50% of IT leaders reuse the same password for all their accounts. So what should we expect from us as normal people, right? And passwords aren't just a user experience problem. They're also a big risk for businesses. More than 80% of all data breaches go back to weak, lost, or stolen credentials. And a simple reset can cost a company up to $70, with about 20 or up to 50% of all help desk calls going back to passwords or some password-related issues. And with Keyless, our goal is to solve that trade-off in authentication or identity more broadly, which is the imbalance of user experience on the one side and privacy and security on the other, and offer a solution that strongly authenticates and identifies the genuine person across any device with a simple look in the camera, but all without storing biometric data. And in that way, the authentication isn't just compliant to privacy regulations, but far exceeds them in a truly anonymous and privacy-preserving way.
Yes, I can definitely relate to the fact of having several different passwords and not remembering which one I use for which website. So has COVID-19 boosted the development of new cybersecurity solutions? And did it change something in particular in your case?
Yeah, I think cybersecurity has seen some of its toughest challenges during the pandemic. And there's always been that traditional timeline view of threats and security, with each having their own timeline. And on the first line, you have new threats that are devised and discovered, and with cybersecurity technologies on the second line, reacting or adapting to eradicate those threats. And in me saying that, I don't mean we wait for a headline to appear before reacting. A lot of the time, this process is done in development through bug bounties or quality assurance before a security technology or updates to it hit the market. But why do I raise it? It's linked to what I think has been one of cybersecurity's biggest challenges, especially in the pandemic, which is speed. The speed to closing that gap between innovations and new threats and innovations and threat solutions. Pre-pandemic, the gap, I guess, was much smaller than it has been in the last year plus. And especially since some of the threats out there, especially phishing or password spraying, which are prime examples, were already in place. And for some attackers with existing means, they had an unprecedented opportunity to exploit new vulnerabilities that they hadn't anticipated would come their way. And a prime example of those vulnerabilities, I'd say, targets the workforce. For the first few months of last year, organizations were scrambling to provide employees with laptops, phones, and such so they could work from home. But they also had to scramble to set up secure access to company systems for these suddenly remote workers who worked from environments or homes which were a lot less secure than the office. And a lot of band-aid solutions were put together quickly from what we've seen, often from existing technologies. And most organizations are still working out the way the long-term strategy will be. On top of that, you have the training aspect for employees to ensure they are aware of threats and that they know what they should do if something suspicious comes their way. And I guess we all had some fishy email in our inbox recently, so it's a very real concern and challenge. But for the cybersecurity world, everyone has to step up their game, especially now post-pandemic, which, to answer the second part of your question about the most, say, advanced domain, I think the biggest advancements have been in areas that concern identity. And identity is front and center of people's minds because the explosion in remote working has broken that traditional concept of perimeter security, where identity now is the perimeter. And organizations are scoping or adopting so-called identity-first security approaches. And I think that concept certainly wasn't there, or at least in any obvious or high-profile way pre-pandemic. And that's one where Keyless is right front and center. So it's actually been, as tragic as the pandemic was, been quite a tailwind for us.
What motivates you to participate in PwC Cybersecurity and Privacy Days 2021?
The work that PwC does in the cybersecurity and privacy space is significant, not just to us, simply through the nature of their business. So they lead the way for and with other organizations. And we've already had the pleasures to be working with PwC in the past. So participating in the Cybersecurity and Privacy Days or events is a must-do for organizations, certainly for ourselves, both for learning in terms of thought leadership and networking, as well with interesting and relevant people in the field. So very much looking forward to it.
As you will probably have noticed, we've purposely added the privacy factor to the title and, of course, to the event's content. What do you think about this?
I think it's a very relevant aspect where privacy is becoming more than a compliance tick mark in the procurement function of large enterprises, but a true differentiator of value propositions in solutions that are offered to businesses. In Europe, we're seeing that promoted through regulatory mandates, such as the GDPR, or means for stronger security that respect privacy, such as the strong customer authentication requirements in open banking. So as a privacy-first company, we're very happy to see that you've added that to the title. And we think it is way more than just a nice buzzword, but should be embedded in next generation solutions that are offered for consumers. We're seeing this more and more as true value.
And for the final question, Fabian, if there was something you could change in the cybersecurity realm tomorrow, what would that be?
That's easy for us. We would get rid of people to have to use passwords and instead have you become your password and ultimately enable you to access any service from any device, but at the same time keep your personal information safe, private, and under your control.
Thank you, Fabian, for taking the time to tell us more about Keyless and for answering our questions. I wish you all the best for the competition.
Thank you very much.
Register for PwC Cybersecurity and Privacy Day starting on the 20th of October. This milestone event brings you not only the latest trends in cybersecurity and privacy, but also the chance to network with experts in the industry, as well as to discover who wins the Cybersecurity and Privacy Solution of the Year Award 2021 by PwC during the Award Gala and Awards Night organized by Cybersecurity Week Luxembourg.